There have been times when members or leaders in the church have simply made mistakes. There may have been things said or done that were not in harmony with our values, principles, or doctrine. I suppose the church would only be perfect if it were run by perfect beings.
Faith has always come easy to me. I naturally believed what I learned, and I don't ever remember doubting or questioning anything that I was taught.
Some have asserted that more members are leaving the church today and that there is more doubt and unbelief than in the past. This is simply not true. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has never been stronger.
There are few members of the church who at one time or another have not wrestled with serious or sensitive questions.
I am not asking you to pretend to faith you do not have. I am asking you to be true to the faith you do have. Sometimes we act as if an honest declaration of doubt is a higher manifestation of moral courage than is an honest declaration of faith. It is not.
Doubt your doubts before you doubt your faith.
Spiritual questions deserve spiritual answers from God.
It wasn't until a few years ago, when I started seriously studying Mormon church history, that I began to be challenged. I distinctly remember when I first read about Joseph Smith practicing polygamy.
Here's another one. Here's another camera. Here's a thing. Got this thing.
It's a lens.
Yeah.
I was surprised. Most of my life I believed that that was all a lie, that it came from anti-Mormon sources. I'd defended Joseph Smith several times on my mission, and suddenly I felt very vulnerable.
Show up here and fall down the window.
Careful, bud.
Yeah.
That's a long fall, not a big drop. You'd probably break your legs when you landed.
Or whatever landed first.
It got worse as I read about the translation of the Book of Mormon, how Joseph Smith used seer stones, how he'd place a stone inside a hat and bury his face in it to block out the extra light. That image really struck me. It seemed so strange and foreign, so different from every idea I'd had in my head for so long about how the translation happened.
harmonica, yeah. Harmonica, yeah.
It's a cool harmonica, bud. I also read about how Joseph Smith searched for buried treasure with the seer stone. Something else I defended numerous times as a missionary when people told me he was a gold digger. One after another, these things started to pile up really quickly, and I felt my faith in the very core of church doctrine begin to shake a little for the first time.
Milo is at the car. You're on way, baby girl.
Hi.
Come on, Dada.
Come here. Let's go this way.
This way.
And when it came time to decide whether I'd do a PhD, if I was going to study median religion at that level, I knew I wasn't stable enough on my own, and that I'd need a good mentor. And that's when I met John.
So, are you going to be running sound there?
I'm just going to set it up over here, yeah.
Okay.
You could even shoot, if you want to shoot some of this. Let's see. We're going to try and turn on the...
One of the hardest things to deal with in my life was when, I was in the middle of my PhD program and I went to a friend's house and he had a little kind of Sunday evening discussion, and in 2 hours he just completely deconstructed Book of Mormon historicity in a kind of absolutely devastating way for me, in a way that I hadn't really worked through before. And it's taken me a lot of time since then to kind of figure out how to deal with that. William James' pragmatism, I think, has been very helpful for me in how do you deal with religious faith. And for James, truth is that which is beneficial to life. Life is short, and I know how I live happily and fruitfully and productively. And living my life within the church context has been enormously fruitful and enriching. What does it mean to say that something really happened? I mean, when you start studying historical events, it becomes very clear that a lot of what we think really happened didn't necessarily happen the way that we think that it happened. Clearly something happened, but trying to get from the event to the records, to the archive, to the documents, to the memory, to the interpretation, to the afterlife, to the cultural myths. I mean, there's so many different layers there that it's sort of very unclear what happened. I mean, someone can come along and say, the Book of Mormon is not historical. And you say, oh no, that's awful. But if you realize that there are a million different ways to think about what historical is, then you say, oh, big whoop, nothing's historical. I've learned how to, or everything's historical, or I've learned how to think about these things. If you want to anchor truth in historical witnesses, then you risk mortgaging your faith to the nitpickers, because they think that if they can debunk some kind of historical fact, then they can debunk faith. But I'm not going to mortgage my life, my reason for being, my outlook on the universe to historians. I know how academics work. Academics argue with each other. They want to be published. They want to outdo someone else. They want to be counterintuitive. They want to scoop someone else. They want to get a raise that year. I mean, their motivations are not purely for truth. Why should I let that kind of, competition, which is productive and I enjoy it and live in it, but that's not how I'm going to decide what is my religious truth. Sorry.
Oh.
Do we have another one
Right back there.
Yeah.
feel like I'm relearning everything that I thought I once knew.
So if God's ways indeed are greater than our ways, why do we get upset when He breaks the containers that we've stuffed Him into? If you want to go against the grain in this world, faith is a good way to go against the grain.